All right, so welcome to the Unapologetic Chauvinist. This is Justice, your host. I wanted to make this video saying as how Valentine's Day is coming up. So let's go through this video. This is a traditionally accepted source, and if you did a little bit of research on your own, you'll find that much of this history presented by the History Channel is actually valid and credible. Sometimes that's rare for the History Channel, and by the way, the History Channel is not the same. It's filled with reality TV shows, Pawn Stars, and stuff like that. It's not the same way it was in the 80s and 90s, so let's just think about it. I might be incorrect about the 80s, but I'm for sure in the 90s, History Channel was very different. And definitely early 2000s. But let's go through this video anyway.
For all its popularity, history doesn't give us any guarantees as to the origins of Valentine's Day. But we do know it contains vestiges of the early Christian church and ancient Rome. The association between mid-February and romance goes back to a pagan festival known as Lupercalia, likely honoring either Lupa, the she-wolf of Rome, who suckled Romulus and Remus, or Faunus, their god of fertility. The festivities began with an animal sacrifice. Then the ritualistic slapping of young women with strips of the animal's skin and blood to bestow fertility for the coming year. In the 5th century, perhaps in an effort to Christianize the pagan festival, Pope Gelasius declared February 14th as St. Valentine's Day.
And I think that's a good place to pause just for a brief moment for some commentary. So the History Channel points out perhaps, maybe, in an effort to Christianize it, but we see this historically with the Catholic Church, the Roman Church, that they would Christianize almost every pagan holiday of the countries they captured in order to integrate those individuals into their universal religion. That's what Catholic means, or Catholicism means. It means universalism, universal. So they would bring in these different groups. You had, the Druids and the Celts and all the different other barbarian groups, as they were called then. They would bring in their beliefs. And then you have to understand that much of the Roman belief system came from Greece. Greece got much of its beliefs from Persia, Babylon, Egypt. Okay, so when you study the history and you just do a very minor study of these things, you can find that the Catholic Church integrated some of these beliefs, gave saintly names, Christian names to these days, and now they're included in modern Western society. Not to mention the capitalization on such a holiday and the ability to make exorbitant amount of money by having people see this one day as a day to show their loved ones or a person of interest some due affection. But let's continue.
As for the real St. Valentine, there were reportedly several canonized by the Church. Legend has it that one St. Valentine, a defiant Roman priest, lived during the 3rd century AD under Emperor Claudius II. Claudius was an ambitious ruler. His battles required vast armies of men to abandon their young families for long periods of time, resulting in a military that was half-hearted and homesick. So determined was Claudius to stop love from sapping the will of his armies, he banned marriages altogether. Father Valentine thought the ban unjust and defied the emperor, continuing to marry young lovers in secret. The emperor eventually caught on to the priest's actions, arrested him, and sentenced him to death. It is believed that young couples he had secretly wed would visit his cell, passing him flowers and notes through the bars as symbols of their gratitude. The story continues that the condemned Father Valentine fell in love with his jailer's daughter. On February 14th, the day he was executed, it is said he passed the young girl a note. It was signed, "From your Valentine." A tradition was born.
Now note the History Channel points out the fact that legend has it. And they also point out the fact that there are several different quote unquote St. Valentine's canonized. So where this holiday came from is pretty dubious, except for the fact that they know, or at least History Channel points out, that it has an association with ancient pagan rites, called the Lupercalia, and its association with February 14th and 15th. Okay, but the actual St. Valentine's story, well, it depends on which St. Valentine you're talking about. If you're talking about this particular one in the legend, then you would say, okay, that's where Valentine's Day comes from. But then the other issue is, okay, can it be separated from its origins? What about all the rituals and things that are associated with the pagan origins and its existence today? Can you separate those things? That applies with Christmas, Easter, and everything else you can think of. So to me, it would behoove me as a person who actually believes in the scripture and the word of God to say that this is not a day that I would want to be associated with. And so the question for you, if you're an actual believer, if you're not, can't do anything for you. If you're an actual believer, the question is, what are you going to do? Are you going to celebrate this day? Are you going to keep it in the spirit in which it was kept originally, or you're going to keep it in a so-called Christianized manner? And then the other thing is that this holiday actually promotes lust. That's another thing. So if you're Christian, I understand if you're married, you might say, oh, I'm doing it for my wife. But what about if you're a single person? Or what about if you claim to be Christian, but you're planning to have some premarital intercourse before the fact, for this day? Again, that's not me standing in a position of judgment or as a judge. Let's just look at the facts. Let's look at it from a biblical perspective. Jesus Christ says himself, to look on a woman with lust is breaking, is adultery, is breaking the spirit of the commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery. So we have to look at this and ask ourselves, should we be associated with such holidays? And then why do we disregard all the the holy days mentioned in the Old Testament, the same holy days that we can see in the 4 gospel accounts and the book of Acts that the apostles and Jesus Christ kept? But we'll make excuses to keep a day like this because we've grown up with it. Maybe you're 30 plus years old. You've been celebrating for 30 years. They influence you to keep it in school. It's a big hoopla. You give out cards, you get candy. So look at how society does everything to go opposite of God. Everything to be contrary to God. And if I say something like this in a video, you'll look at me as a quote unquote Christian fanatic or what have you. If I say I believe the Old Testament and that it's still valid and credible, the laws, so forth and so on, you'll say I'm some religious zealot. Oh, you think you're a Hebrew Israelite, so forth and so on. The labels doesn't matter. The actions are what matters. I don't care what you label me. The point is that if I say I believe something, then I should stand and act on that conviction, and I think you should too. Again, can't tell you what to do, but I can suggest that you reconsider your participation in pagan holidays.
Cupid, the winged matchmaker, started out as the Roman god of love, inspired the image of cherubs for Christmas.
And not only was he the Roman god of quote unquote love, he was the Roman god of lust. If you actually look into it, and he'll allude to this in this video. Let's keep going.
And is now a favorite of card makers and mass marketers.
And wait, let me rewind that back.
Inspired the image of cherubs for Christians.
Now, why would a pagan deity inspire what cherubs look like? When you read the Old Testament and you see what cherubs look like, they don't look like children. They have flaming swords and more than two wings and wheels, as mentioned in English. I don't think it's exactly wheels in the original Hebrew. But if you understand what cherubs are supposed or are said to look like in the Bible, you would understand that Christians have taken on this belief of what cherubims look like from the Catholic Church, integrating this paganism, the acceptance of Cupid, this pagan deity, as what cherubs look like. So again, we need to be careful of what we believe and where those things come from, and look at their sources.
And is now a favorite of card makers and mass marketers. Our modern Valentine's Day, removed from its religious and pagan past, has evolved into one of the most celebrated.
And look how he tries to secularize this particular day, like it's removed from its pagan and religious connotations, associations. But it's not true at all. It's still named after a quote unquote Catholic saint, Saint Valentine's Day. So it's not far removed. Many of the rituals are pretty much the same. The difference is you have monetary value placed on the memorabilia of this day. So it's become a money-making marketing scheme, as he mentioned, but it's not separated from its pagan and religious association. This is untrue, and anybody with a half a critical mind can figure that out.
Holidays on the calendar. On average, Americans shower their loved ones with 180 million roses, red ones naturally, and almost 36 million heart-shaped boxes of candy, not to mention all those cards, dinners, and diamonds. All told, the holiday brings in almost $14 billion annually, giving retailers plenty to love as well. But if you're worried that you can't...
So, just another thing briefly, you're talking about massive amount of money coming in from holidays like these, Easter, Halloween, Christmas. If you claim to be secular worldview, anti-secular system, anti-pagan, you wouldn't give your money to feed this system. Because that's what you're doing when you participate in these days. You're helping to feed this system and perpetuate these things that are happening. Okay, so really, really think about this.
Afford to treat your loved one properly next Valentine's Day? Take heart. The poets were right. Love is really all you need.
And if love was really all you need, you wouldn't need that day. You would show love to your spouse or your girlfriend, so to speak, whatever that really means. It's just a title, but you would show love to the people you love every day. You would make an occasion, and you don't need February 14th for you to figure that out. You don't need cards to figure that out. You don't need roses to figure that out. You don't need diamonds to figure that out, or whatever else you do to celebrate Valentine's Day. You want to make someone feel special, show them some love and appreciation on a random day. You love your wife, you walk up to her after you get up and you get yourself together and she's in the kitchen maybe making breakfast. You walk downstairs and you go to her and you hug her and you say, I appreciate everything you do here. That's the kind of thing you do when you love someone. But before I go on a major rant, I think I'll end this video here and say, God bless and good day.